everybody. This is Michelle.
And this is Julie coming to you from Seattle, Washington, the Emerald City, on this fine day that we have here today.
It is a fine day.
It kind of is. We've had a busy week, huh?
Yeah. Even though yesterday was finer because it was bluer and there was more sunshine.
Oh, girl, there was like 80 degrees out.
Yeah. It's not raining though, so it's still fine.
And I actually had the epiphany yesterday that my entire wardrobe is black. Like I didn't know that before.
Don't we do that every year though?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
So then we add a white shirt or something to it, Let's brighten it up. Let's put a white shirt in there, maybe some open-toed sandals. No, it doesn't work when you're wearing black all the time, black sweatshirts, everything. Anyway, well, we're here today and we actually have a really interesting topic and a wonderful speaker that we talked into working with us today. And I will introduce her. This is actually my very, very dear friend, Melissa Carpin. And Melissa, we've known each other for, 25 years at least. Yeah. She was my scrapbooking coordinator back in the day.
Oh, this is the one that was the scrapbooker?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, she's the one that introduced me to India Irie.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We would go on all these little weekend things and we were so wild. We scrapbooked till 3 in the morning. And
scrapbooking queens.
Yeah. So anyway, I'd love to introduce Melissa and just have her chat a little bit about her background and her history a little bit. And we are going to get into a topic that is her expertise, and that really surrounds finances. And more particularly, it can really apply to anyone, but it's really governed towards, or we're kind of nodding it towards women and finances that you're trying to get together and trying to organize and really plan for your future. So she's the expert in that, and actually is going to be helping me with some very similar stuff coming up here pretty soon. We keep talking about it. We haven't done it yet. So on to that, Melissa. Thank you for being here.
Thank you both so much. I'm thrilled to be here and talk about something that's near and dear to my heart.
Very cool.
Yeah. And I have been divorced for, 15 years or so. And, I just found going through that time was way rougher than I anticipated. And it was also kind of that time that was 2007, 2008. And so that was rough anyway. But coming into and learning how to manage my money, set aside money, make ends meet on one instead of two incomes anymore, know? And so...
And being able to have money left over for other things that you had planned for. So trips that we were going on and things like that.
Yeah.
Can I ask a personal question?
Please.
When you were married,
yes,
did you share in the finance department, or was one or the other... I don't like to use the word in charge of, but, managed the finances?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say my husband did a lot of the investment stuff, and I did a lot of other, the other kind of budgeting and paying of bills and things like that. But,
okay.
But I had also stepped out of the workforce for, a good 10 years or so, right? And so I had some side businesses that were kind of prosperous in that day. And so that was kind of fun to dabble in that. But really, I hadn't been in the workforce for quite a long time. And so after we divorced and I started a bakery, it was a wholesale bakery, and that had great plans for that. And unfortunately, the timing, sucked, right? So
this girl can make a cupcake. Like
I know I'm sitting here because I don't know Melissa, everybody. So I'll just apologize ahead of time. I might ask more questions than we were planning, because that's amazing that you were, okay. Anyway.
She made Mary's cake for her 50th birthday. This gorgeous. I mean, you didn't even want to eat it because it was so pretty.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's a passion now. I love to do it.
I love that. Okay.
But I did try and do a business, and unfortunately it just didn't work given the timing and everything. And so I would meet with our Edward Jones investment guy. And so he started talking to me about when he could see that the writing was on the wall, that I needed to find some work. And I'd been out of the workforce for a long time. And so I worked with him, and that kind of started, he said, you've always been interested in investments and money. And so it just kind of started that way, but I had a lot to learn, and I was also older than a lot of people starting in that field. So that's how that started.
Isn't it funny? It's like you say, that is kind of viewed as a detriment in the work industry when people are starting and looking into different careers and stuff. But the reality is you have so much experience that you can bring to that role.
I did feel when I looked around, but you know where it came in handy? It was in Edward Jones. To build your business. You literally go out and knock on doors, and you have neighborhoods that you canvas, and that is how you build your business.
Wow, boy.
So when people would open the door to me, I was this middle-aged female. And so I had a couple notches of credibility that maybe some of the younger male, 20, 22-year-olds maybe didn't have. And so that did, in that case, that did help.
Like they probably didn't even own a home. So. I was with my client yesterday, and she had been working with a real estate agent, I guess, before she met me. And he was 19. And I was like, he can't even drink.
Oh my gosh, 19. Wow.
How is he going to tell you what the strategy is? I mean, I just kind of laughed about it because I'm like, okay, well, maybe he's really sharp. But anyway, I digress. Go on.
So that's how I started. And then I would start talking to other people who were women who were going through divorce and trying to figure things out. And I just wanted to reach out and help people and tell them the mistakes that I'd made and suggestions or whatever. And so I really did try and reach out to people who just needed some help on that. And here I am. So,
So you started with Edward Jones.
I did.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I started with Edward Jones.
And she has such a calm demeanor. I mean, from the business, you
can
tell.
see that. Yeah.
It's like when you've talked to me about things, like we've discussed these things, it kind of calms me down because I've never felt, and I know your clients don't either, like you're trying to you're selling them stuff. It's like you really are, I can see, have a true desire to help people figure things out. So,
well, and there's a lot of statistics that show there are reasons why women who are single, who have to kind of work a little bit harder to make ends meet, to put money aside. There's reasons for that. When we look at women live longer than men do. So we've got to put away more money. We make less than men do. We are expected to care for our children. Our parents do a lot of the care, the housework. There still is that expectation. As crazy as that sounds, here we are in 2023, but it's still there.
The superwoman syndrome.
Yeah.
I think it always will be for women.
Yeah. Well, I think we kind of put ourselves in that place too, because I've always said, no, I can handle all this. When in reality, it's probably not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that when we're in that mode, at least I know when I have been, and I've shared with you that I still step back into that kind of scarcity thinking around money and such. But really, like, we spend a lot of our time planning for in the moment and what's happening in the next few weeks, that as women, because we're trying to caretake and we're trying to plan around because we are juggling a lot of different plates in the air, right? And so we have to really force ourselves to really think long term. And we want to put our kids first, right? So we want to put them through college if we can. Any extra money that we have maybe goes towards helping them.
Oh my gosh, I still do all of that.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
We just had a conversation about her youngest.
Just listening to her say all that out loud, I'm like, yep, check. Yep. I'm still doing it. Oh, okay.
Kind of validates it, doesn't it, Michelle? Because you're hearing it from someone else.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. And so really giving ourselves permission to think about ourselves and put our retirement and our savings first ahead of other people. That's really hard. That's tough.
It is hard.
Yeah.
It's very counterintuitive.
It is. So just really helping people take those first steps to figuring out how you can save more money, figuring out, okay, I really want this, but maybe I need to wait and set that money aside so that I can have, a comfortable retirement. So.
And I guess the question is everybody's vision of a comfortable retirement is probably a little bit different, I imagine, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It depends on, is there like a whole formula that you kind of go through to figure out, like, where do you want to be and how much do you need to do that? And then I've heard there's like a formula or something.
Sure. There are, you can look at like your lifestyle and all of that. And, we use a lot of robust software that will help with retirement planning. And I think that's what you're talking about is financial planning and such, being able to set aside, enough money to do all those things that you want to do. And you're right. Everyone's retirement looks different, right? So what I want to do might be different than what Michelle wants to do or what you want to do. So to me, one of the important pieces is, even though it's might be an ugly picture and you don't really want to see what that looks like, is, taking that leap and working with someone to work on a financial plan so that you can see where you need to start from, because then you're going to come up with some strategies and, okay, you know what, if I start putting X away a year, that sounds like this huge number, but really, okay, it's so much a month or it's so much a week. And then that money starts, you get the snowball effect.
Starts growing.
Yeah, that accumulation. And so then it's amazing what really does start to happen. And you're checking on that plan. You're seeing this probability of success get higher and higher as you're getting, further and further along. So the hardest part really is just getting started, because when you're kind of living week to week, month to month, you don't want to see what that looks like, because it's scary.
It's kind of scary. Yeah,
it is, especially when you hear lots of chatter and people talking around you, and it seems intimidating and it seems like you don't measure up. And so it can be real challenging.
Just out of curiosity, and I know you run across people of all different ages, with your work, but our generation, we're kind of in that place. It's a little bit different than the generations before us, like our parents we've talked about, because our parents come up, definitely in conversation and stuff. But back in the day that our parents were, our age, let's say, and they were going through a divorce or whatever the case may be, doesn't seem like they really had a lot of options. A lot of those women weren't working outside the home because it was the time frame.
Right.
So a lot of the money that they pulled in was from just doing odd things. I know that's what my mom did. She took care of us, but, cut hair, did whatever. But do you find that when you're dealing with clients now, like you have clients that are, say, elderly, like the husband passes away or something like that, and you have to kind of start fresh with like a woman who's in her 70s, because she's that must be so scary.
Yes, I do have several clients who are starting over at a later age. And it's very challenging for them. And I admire them so much for taking that step and asking for help and being willing to go back to work if they have to, make changes in their lifestyle that they really haven't had to do,
right,
in a long time. And so, and then, a lot of their peers are in a very different place.
Yes.
Right. And so they're seeing their friends, their other couple friends going on vacations and travel and do all these things. And they have to rethink all of that and make some real strong changes. So I really feel for them, and also just have so much respect for being able to do that.
Well, it takes a lot of courage, It's
it does.
I feel like, and again, we're talking women right here because we're all women. You're sustaining a home, you're raising children, you're taking care of the family. And there's, like you were saying before, it's like you're not necessarily putting yourself first because you're trying to put everybody else. That's just how it's the nature of what we do. Yeah. And then you get to the point where you're on your own. I mean, I remember going through divorce, and I had a great job. I was so scared, of being able to manage things on my own.
Sure.
And I'm not sure why, because I was fine to be able to do it. It was just that that lack of comfort, I should say, on doing it by myself, I guess. So I can imagine if someone isn't like a widow, that might be even scarier, especially generationally, if they never really talked about money or the husband managed everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. I have a couple of clients who just really didn't understand that they were going to have to make some lifestyle changes that were going to be pretty rough.
So, like, give me an example of what you mean, like lifestyle change.
Meaning they were married to someone who brought in a significant amount of income. They hadn't worked in a long time. They are older now. They're in their 70s. They've been going to the country club, traveling, never having to give a thought about money. And all of a sudden now waking up and, sitting with them, sitting next to them, working on a financial plan, seeing that probability of success, coming down And
the eyes get wide.
Yeah, it's very scary for them. So,
well, and I think even, women that are even our age, I can think of one person that I know who had, a very lucrative career, huge house, very, they appeared very wealthy, I would say, on the outside, and then he passed away very suddenly. And he was so over leveraged that the wife thought everything was fine, but that wasn't the case. They were so over leveraged, and he didn't share a lot of those things with her. So she was cleaning up all of these messes that she didn't even know about, after he passed away, that just kind of surfaced. So I imagine there's some of that too.
Yeah, we hear those stories, of that happens way too often, where one spouse or one partner is in charge of one area of life. And so, I encourage my daughter and my son, but mostly my daughter, because she's female. And that does tend to happen where certain things get kind of pushed off to the male partner and to the female partner, right? And it's really important. It makes sense to have certain people in the relationship do certain things.
Yeah.
Because
some people are good at some things.
They're better at things they enjoy, right? They enjoy finances or whatever. But it is really important to always keep your finger there and make sure that you know what's going on. And
absolutely. I will say, because when I was married, I didn't do any of the finance. I didn't do anything. And so when, of course, I was super scared to get divorced.
Yeah.
From that aspect. And then when I did,
you realized you needed to kind of prepare for some of that.
Oh, for sure.
There was a lot of robbing Peter to pay Paul, or trying to figure out how to keep their heads above water.
Yeah. So just to your point, for both people to have a finger on the pulse of what's happening, super important.
Yeah. Checks and balances, just understanding, I think, what's happening I have another friend who had done all of the bills, done all of the mortgage and all that stuff, and got so fed up because the money was getting spent before it even got thrown in the account by the husband. And so she said, you know what? Handed everything over. And next thing you know, they were losing their house because he wasn't paying the bills, that kind of thing. So I think it's important, you're right, to both have an understanding of what's happening. So you had mentioned earlier about the disparity in wages. And I know that is still out there. Do you feel like the gap is closed a little bit?
It's crazy because I think it was 2020, I think it was at 80% or something. And now it's maybe at 83% women making versus men.
So we're 17% in the negative.
And it really hasn't changed a lot over the last, I think, 30 years or so. That's frightening to me.
Yeah. Same job. So, right.
Yeah.
We're talking like equal job.
Yep. So you have that happening. And then you have the women who are stepping out of the workforce to care for kids and maybe not being able to work full time because there's a lot of things that need to be done around the house, things like that, taking care of elderly parents. And it's hard when you have to when you're out of the workforce and then step back into the workforce. That's tough.
Yeah.
Because I felt that because, 10 years go by and that's a long time to be out of the workforce.
And depending on what you're going back into the workforce for, you're definitely competing with the next graduating class of X, or, it just depends on what you probably want to do.
Absolutely.
But yeah, you definitely are dealing with, I would say, more competition for a specific role, younger competition, different mindsets. I've noticed, the difference between like a millennial and a Gen Xer and a Gen Zer and a boomer. My kids call me a boomer and I'm just like, come on guys, I'm not really a boomer, but technically I guess I'm the last year.
It's kind of interesting. We were just chatting about this at work the other day and all the different definitions of those. And it's very like I kind of, I guess, swing in between two of them.
It's more of the kind of like the mindset of those particular age groups and the privilege. I mean, we could get into that. That's a whole other topic.
That would be a great topic.
So still a significant wage difference. So then when you are dealing with women, for example, who are needing to kind of set up their finances, you're looking at maybe a little bit less to work with, or they haven't been in the workplace as long, or they just don't make as much. So they've got to work with what they've got.
Sure. and you have to adjust that, right? Because a lot of times, like we've been talking about, you have this certain lifestyle that you have been accustomed to, and all of a sudden that has drastically changed. And you have to quickly figure out those non-negotiable bills are that have to be paid, right? And then what's kind of left for, the other stuff, right? And so there's sometimes, of course, not much left over to save.
Right.
And so that becomes, you're looking at having to pull money out of one place to pay something else or to fund something else. And so to me, it's easy to sit here and say, oh, just make sure you're setting, a certain percentage aside, but you can't, life is hard sometimes. And sometimes you have to put every single penny of what you're making into making it through the month.
Right.
So I recognize that when you get to a place where you can either scale back on what you're spending. And it is always fascinating because we all think we know what we're spending.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you get a little pay bump or something, you have some extra money. And I don't know about you, but it is so easy just to sit in the evenings and
spend the pay bump.
Oh yeah. And just look, on some do a little online shopping. And then all of a sudden it's like, I just spent, $250 in the blink of an eye. So, finding that extra money that you can and really not even seeing it, trying to, as soon as you get paid, set X amount aside in a savings account. Or, most of us have, or not most of us, but if you are lucky to have an employer that offers a retirement plan.
Oh yeah.
To me, that is the first place to really try and save. So
because they match it a lot of the time, right?
Yeah, right. So looking at retirement plans, if your company offers a retirement plan, especially like you mentioned, if they match it, you want to make sure that you're at least, setting aside that amount, that percentage. So if they do if you put in 3%, then they'll match at 3%. So you got to take advantage of free money.
Sure. Heck yeah.
So do that. Then as you get, increases, sometimes in your plan, you can elect to automatically have a percentage increased or something like that.
Okay. So like if you get a raise?
Yeah, if you get a raise so you can set that aside in a better way. And to me, going back then, you also have to be building your emergency fund. So you're talking about trying to set aside for the future, spend what you have here, and then also be putting aside a little bit for an emergency fund. That's rough.
Is emergency fund in your mind the same thing as like a discretionary, non-discretionary, like a fund, like to go on vacation fund or something, or is it separate?
To me, it's separate. To me, it's like if something happens and I just got a huge tax bill, right? So tapping into having that.
The rainy day.
Right. The rainy day fund. And then that discretionary that you're talking about in terms of, doing the extras like vacations or extra clothes, whatever it is that you like to do.
I like how Jules thinks the emergency fund is for vacation.
That can be a serious emergency, right?
It can be if you live in the Northwest.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it kind of depends on what qualifies, right?
Yeah. No kidding. Hey.
Oh. Sorry, I just had to point that out.
I know.
Thank you.
Well, I know what you're talking about with the emergency fund because we had like a little savings when I was married, and we had a rainy day fund, like a rainy day, I guess, emergency fund would be. And we had this huge pipe burst, like at the tree went through. Yeah. And it wasn't covered by insurance. It was like $9,000, some crazy amount of money. And we're like, well, at least we had it set aside, we cleaned it out, but we had it set aside because we kind of needed plumbing.
Well, absolutely. And I can't tell you how many years I didn't have an emergency fund because I was trying to make it month to month. You know? And so as soon as I was able to start putting aside a little bit, it didn't seem like very much. If you're not looking at it, you're not paying attention to it, you check it every once in a while, it does start to kind of build up, just kind of forget about it. And all of a sudden, then it's like, all right. And it's something at least for me, it's just this,
load off your shoulders.
Yeah. Like I can do this. It just feels a little bit better. I don't feel quite as stressed. And so there are so many people that I know are still there and can't do that. So just trying to do a little bit.
Who's raising her hand?
Oh, did somebody raise their hand?
I always do these little weird things. Zoe does it too. It's where like I save all my change. I mean, I have a piggy bank and I'm in my 50s, whatever. She's cute. She's pink, but she's full. And then that's like, we're going to Mexico in November. I will, when we go, I will take all that change and I will cash it in, and I will use that for like, it'll probably cover one dinner, but that's what I use it for. It's like our slushy fund.
Something is better than nothing.
Yeah.
I suppose, right?
Yeah. And it's fun to then you go to dinner on vacation and you're like, yeah, rock on. Piggy bank paid for this.
Piggy bank paid for that. We used to have a Sun River jar. We called it the Sun River jar because we would put money in there. And then when we went to Sun River, I think we only went to Sun River a couple times, but it was the way we got Jared to save money, who burns holes in his pocket with coin. Yeah, it's bad. But yeah, put it in there and then that would be used for those things.
I suppose too, as I'm listening to some of this stuff, it seems like for those that are living paycheck to paycheck, just trying to make it, so many of the things, the emergency fund and savings and all of that is probably overwhelming and seems like an impossible feat. And therefore it's just this thing in their mind that never happens.
Yep.
Because I'm speaking from personal experience. And so you just don't know, because you don't know where to start. You don't know how you could start when you're living paycheck to paycheck like that.
Well, you can, what do you buckle down on?
Yeah. But I also, in listening, I feel like it's never too late to start. Obviously, it shouldn't be. I think some people probably think that too. Well, it's too late. What am I going to do at this point? It's really not going to make much of a difference. Never too late to start. And something is better than nothing. I guess I'm just talking out loud the things that I am gleaming from this conversation.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of value to that, because when you think we are in our 50s, and were we talking, Michelle and I were talking the other day, like, she's like, what if something happens?
Yeah, we were.
Yeah, we were having that what if something happens to me? And I mean, she's got insurance and all that kind of stuff, but it's like, what's the plan?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'll take care of you. I'll take care of you. Yeah, there's the plan. This is like the little old biddies on the front porch.
But I know I'm not just a one-off. Like
you aren't.
So many people that, I'm sure.
Absolutely. I think that's a really great question. To me, it's kind of three-pronged. It's setting aside what you can, right? So even if that's $20 a week, whatever, setting it aside into an account where you don't see it, and that becomes your kind of emergency money. And also taking we were laughing about this earlier, but taking a good hard look at what you're spending money on.
Yeah.
It's shocking to me when I actually do that, because I think I'm spending X amount and really it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's a little out of
control.
It's
easy to use the debit card. You don't really think about it with the debit card.
Yeah.
One person I know had just for the sake of trying to keep track of things, used their credit. Well, they got points on it, so I think that's why they used the credit card, but used a credit card for 1 month for all purchases, everything, even track. Coffee, groceries, gas, everything, to keep track. Yeah. And it was really eye-opening, how much is spent. Because I have a tendency I like to have some cash in my pocket. But honestly, a lot of places aren't even taking cash anymore, so like for a cup of coffee or something, but I've even cut back on that because it's gotten so ridiculously expensive.
Yeah. And everybody knows themselves, right? So some people have cash and they just start spending like crazy, right? Some people would prefer to put it all on a credit card and pay it at the end of the month. If you're somebody who's can't do that responsibly, then the cash method is going to be better for you. But really, and then making some choices on what you're going to get rid of, right? I put myself on like spending freezes when I need to. And it's shocking how much you actually can save. And you really stop and you think about something that you've got in your hand or in your online shopping cart. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah.
I can do without.
Yeah. I don't need that.
I would imagine the way shopping is nowadays has had I'm sure it's very different now with your clients than it was however many years ago when you started, especially with all the online capabilities for shopping.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's so much harder to track, to your point just now, of what you're spending your money on.
For sure.
So I'm sure people get in a little more trouble quickly more quickly and easily than what it used to be like.
So if someone was to just say, okay, they're in a position where, let's just use Michelle as an example.
Oh gosh.
I'm just kidding.
Go for it.
No, it's like if someone was in that position where they're like, okay, I've got to figure this out. I've been doing like say paycheck to paycheck. I want to put some money aside. I've had an emergency. I had to pull out my 401k, whatever the case may be. Now they're in a position where it's like a blank slate.
Right.
Where do you start?
Okay. So we talked about looking at your spending
Okay.
and really honing that in and figuring out what those critical things are, those have-tos. I'm not telling everyone to don't spend anything extra. I don't believe in that. You need to enjoy life also. So figure that piece out, setting aside X amount for your emergency fund that you can do away with. And the third part that we didn't talk about just now, but really looking at what your options are for your employer retirement plan.
Okay.
Because that is, especially when that matches with what they offer, if they offer a match, that comes out of your paycheck.
You don't even
see it.
Yeah.
And then as you start earning more money, that also helps in what, I'm not a tax person, but it's also going to reduce what your income is and what you're paying taxes on. So looking at that money, and some places also have a Roth option too.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So
I get kind of confused on those.
Yeah, that's after tax money. And so that means that the money that you put into it is after tax. It's not pre-tax.
Okay.
But when you retire, when you want to use that money later, so after you've retired, you're going to roll typically your 401k into an IRA. So it's either going to be a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. And in this case, talking about a Roth. And that means that after-tax money that you set aside is not taxable. So as that's growing over, 30 years time, you've got that great accumulation going. And then when you go to pull money out of it, when you need it later for age 60, then that's not taxed.
Okay. So if you roll your 401k into that's taxed though, if you pull it out?
Right.
Okay. So
Right.
it just differentiates between
Yes.
what was there and what is.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. And so a lot of employers are, and again, you're going to look at whether or not, as you start earning more money and you do want to look at having some tax advantages, then you're going to look at, okay, I'm going to do the pre-tax, which is going to lower my taxes. And so really, working with someone.
Yeah, it's a lot to digest.
It is, yeah. And working with a professional to help give you some guidance on all of that is super important to me. Even when you don't feel like you have enough money to work with someone, always ask around, get referrals, and take advantage of that knowledge, because they're going to help you with some strategies on putting some money away. They're going to help you, hopefully they offer like some financial planning to get started on that piece. We talked a little bit about that.
Yeah.
To me, taking advantage of being able to look at what you have and where you're going and what you want to do in retirement, what all of that looks like, can really be a great place to, it's a hard reality check sometimes, but it's important to see those numbers don't lie, right?
No. Well, and you probably got, there's assets and things that kind of play into your overall, I guess you'd say overall wealth. Is that what you'd say? Overall portfolio?
Yep.
Maybe is another way to put it. What do you run across a lot of credit card debt with people? Because that seems to be one that people have a tough time getting their heads above water on that, or getting out of that type of debt because the interest rates are so high.
I would imagine credit card debt is a big one.
It's huge.
It is. I know a lot of people that it is huge, and it's very hard to get out of that because it just keeps accumulating, and if you're not paying it down, absolutely. And that can be a real stickler. So in terms of, and when we're looking at those minimal things to do too, of course, if you do have credit card debt, make sure that you are paying, if you can, more than the minimum amount that's due, and kind of just cutting yourself off from that and just paying that down. And then once you've finished paying that down, because you've gotten used to doing without that money, set that
Set it aside.
$250 or whatever into your emergency fund, or fund, if you qualify for a Roth IRA.
How do you qualify for something like that?
There's different stipulations. So a lot of it has to do with how much money you earn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that changes every year. And so you are allowed to make what's called an after-tax contribution. And so it depends after age 50. So we get an extra $1,000. And so we can put aside like $7,000
a year.
Yeah. And it changes year to year.
Okay.
But that gives you, and so that's after tax money. So again, what that accumulates, that's invested, it stays invested for a long time. You keep adding to it. And then when you retire, you're not paying any taxes on it.
I like that.
Oh, it is such a great setup.
I mean, when you think about the taxes that we're paying on like the 401k or whatever, it's all pre-taxed money, but you're getting taxed at whatever bracket you're at when you pull it out, I think, aren't you?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Assuming
like in
that
the
you've rolled
30% or something.
Yeah.
It's
Assuming
high.
you've rolled it over.
What's the name of that blonde financial guru?
Oh,
She talks about Roth IRAs all the time.
Susie
I know who-
Orman.
Susie, yeah, she's
Susie
kind of
Orman.
annoying.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
the one I got the change thing from.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
She likes buckets. She
Yeah,
does
she
like
likes-
buckets.
That's just, it made me think of her when you were talking about the Roth, because she talks about those a lot.
Well, I do always encourage people to use a Roth IRA as a savings vehicle, because the other beauty of a Roth IRA is that you can pull out the contributions that you've put in there, the money that you put in there, not the gain that you have
Right.
on it, at any time without a tax
Penalty?
without it being taxed. Yeah.
Jeez.
Or without the penalty and the tax. So as long as you are keeping track of what you have contributed, it's called the basis. Then so if you do have an emergency, go ahead, use that to set aside some money. And then if you need to buy a car or something like that, then you can pull the contributions out that you've made. So
The contributions, but not what you've gained.
until you are
Reach.
at least 59 and a half, and that money's been invested for 5 years.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
That kind of makes sense though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That might be a good way to. I mean, we've actually talked about this because I have the, whatever it is, the 401k that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I've just kind of let it sit there for the whole time, just from when I was at Nordstrom.
Mm-hmm.
But during the pandemic, they had where you could pull out
Yes.
a portion of it for, I don't know, hardship or whatever. And I was dealing with this freaking house right here. So I had to pull out a portion of it.
Yeah.
Well, and you had to pay it back every year, 3 different years in a row, and there was no penalty. Or you didn't pay it back and you hit the penalty, and the penalty was like 45% or something. Some crazy amount of money. Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
But I mean, at least it was an option that was available, thank goodness, during that time frame. But okay, so you're saying taking a look at expenses.
Yep. And then let's loop back to something you just mentioned. Like, we all have our money, or those of us who have options to invest in an employer plan. You do have to keep your eye on that and make sure that it is diversified, that it's invested properly, and that you don't just kind of turn a blind eye to it and move on and forget about it. Because, as we've seen with market volatility and lots of crazy stuff happening, that it's important to make sure that you are well diversified. And
Well, and it depends a lot too on your age, right? Because aren't you going to be a little bit more aggressive with your investments?
yep,
when
everybody's
you're
different.
30 or whatever. Yeah.
Sure. Yep. I mean, my dad, he was a fighter pilot, and he was invested in, 95% equities
Really?
until like a few months before he passed away. God love him. Like,
And those are
he
the
was
aggressive
just like,
ones, right?
Oh yeah. And he was in his 80s, right? And so everybody has a different kind of definition of, what's comfortable for them, but absolutely making sure that you're not, if you are doing something that's a little bit out there, that's fine. Just, it needs to be money that you can lose, that you're willing to lose and walk away from.
Yeah. Either that or go to Vegas.
Yeah. There you go.
I'd lose it either way. not very lucky in that stuff. Let's talk about the goals. Like you've asked me that before when we would say, what's your 1-year goal, your 5-year goal? And of course, I just freeze. I'm just like, oh, we were talking about this, Michelle and I, the other day too. So tell me if this makes sense. Like when you kind of say, okay, let's plan your 1-year goal. Is the 1-year goal maybe to get yourself set up and get things organized and kind of have a really good picture of what you're doing that leads to the 5-year goal? which is whatever you're envisioning your retirement to be, maybe?
Sure. And so I also talk about kind of 1 year, 5 year, 10-year goals in terms of, if you're going to need some money in a year that you, like if you're going to need to buy a new car or something, then you're going to want to keep that pretty liquid, or that money's going to be kind of
available.
And
that's stuff you plan for? Sorry.
I know there's going to be a meeting set up after this podcast. It's good stuff though. Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
No, it's, I get it. It's so true. It's like, oh, okay, I think I'm going to need a new car soon.
Mm-hmm.
And then looking, a little bit beyond to that, what do I want to do? And what am I seeing myself doing in 5 years? And really starting, and it's getting a little bit exciting, but also scary because we're at that point in our lives where like, oh shit, like this is coming around the corner pretty soon. Like,
do you know what can I ask you? You don't have to tell me. It's like what your 5-year plan. I don't have one. I really don't have like a vision of I think I might buy a place in Arizona where but all I think about is sun.
Like a 5-year financial plan.
No, I'm
is
not
that
even
what
thinking.
Just
like your 5-year plan, your goals, so that because your finances all correlate to what your goals are, right?
Right.
Or they should. I would think they would.
Yeah.
Normally,
that is so hard for me, and it's because I've been without, I've been on my own and have not had much money, and it's really hard for me to just sit back and dream and close my eyes and think about where I see myself, because it feels like
you don't want to let yourself down.
I don't want to let myself down. Yeah, there it is. And it feels really far off. And I don't want to fall short of that. So, but it's really important because that's how we get ourselves to that place, right? It's part of that process of, okay, so if I'm going to be doing X in 5 years or 10 years, whatever that mark is, then what do I need to be doing right now, and backtracking and figuring that out? Okay, that means I need to be saving, such and such amount a year, which breaks down into how much a month. Can I do that? Well, actually I could.
So does that, you take into account like what the life expectancy is or something when you're planning those things? Because if you're saying this is how much I need, then you would have to figure out how much I have to save per month in order to get to the place where I'm not having to worry about working, or like my investments are working for me or whatever.
Sure. Right. And when you're working with, an advisor or a planner that has access to all of those calculators and financial planning tools, they can help you figure out, are you talking about like what today's dollar is worth versus
compared
in 5 years?
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Like that you talk about, like if a kid has got a savings right now and they don't, they just add every little bit to it here and there. If they get to be 60, it's going to be a lot more money than it would have been had.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of research that shows like if you started saving when you are, I think it's 18,
I've seen that.
And it's not even a lot.
No.
It's not even very much money. How quickly that whole accumulation thing happens, and the difference between starting, younger and starting older, of course, it is huge, and it doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even there can't be.
And it's so crazy because, when you're 18 years old, you got the world by the tail. You don't got to do this. That's not important. Am I just speaking for myself again?
No.
And you're just blindly
there
going
will be
through.
More. I'll have more next week. I'll figure it out then.
By the time you figure all this shit out, it's like, I'm not going to say it's too late, but here we are.
No, and the last thing that I want is you have to rely on somebody else. I think that's the whole thing about being an independent individual, because you want, that's not to say that down the road you won't, meet somebody, be in a relationship or whatever the case may be, but I don't plan for that. I plan for how I'm going to take care of myself, how I'm going to manage my household. And then if there's someone who comes along for the ride, I sure as hell don't want to take care of him, but I'm not expecting him to take care of me either.
Right. Yeah. We got to bring it to the table and be partners.
Right.
Yeah.
Although that would be really nice. But I'm definitely not planning for it. So
no. Yeah. And I found myself realizing how I was kind of hesitating and waiting because I kept wanting to wait and plan for meeting that special guy, you know, and it's like, time to get my life together and figure out what I want.
Right.
And then I will certainly incorporate that with his.
And what if the special guy has the same reality about no backup plan? Then you have no backup plan times two. So,
Oh, yeah, that's not happening.
no. It's interesting how opposites kind of do attract when it comes to money. I mean, I've noticed it quite a bit. You know, it's like one's a real hoarder about money and one is like an overspender. Usually you end up with one or the other.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's usually one in the relationship that enjoys kind of that piece of it more and one that, you know, doesn't really want to. And to me, it's always really important when I'm working with a couple to really help educate and have that person feel comfortable. That's very important to me because they are part of, they do have opinions. They're just sometimes afraid to share those because they're not maybe using, you know, quote, the right lingo or something like that. But working with couples that have different opinions and different levels of understanding, it's always important to really listen and take into account everybody has different goals because most couples are different.
You I'm sure gotta be so flexible, like be able to style flex with people in what you do.
Absolutely.
All the time.
Especially when it comes to the topic of
With
money. 'Cause
money,
that is a tough one for people.
I think it's one of the toughest ones in a relationship. And yeah, reading the room, and I'm really watching and seeing who's doing the talking and who's not, in body language. And there are a lot of things that come up between couples when you're working together. Yeah. Because it's a hot topic. And we all have our stories around money and how we were raised, right? Yep. The messages that we got about money. And then you come together and you form this union, and now you have somebody who thinks about money so differently than what you did and what you're used to. And so, yeah, it's a tough one.
We had actually in the episode that we recorded this past week, we talked about that because nobody teaches you how to work on that together. You know, when you're married, they don't really, you just kind of get married and everybody's supposed to be happy, but nobody really talks about that's one of the largest obstacles I think people run into.
Yeah.
Different versions or different views on it. So if you create a financial plan, and like you were saying, and Michelle, you probably we can all speak to this, but you get your plan in place and then you have to stay disciplined with your plan. Yep. And there's probably a period of time where, you know, you can ease up a little bit because things are going a little bit better or you're on track. And so maybe you treat yourself to whatever.
Right. A vacation.
I was actually thinking getting your nails done, but
I was like, ice cream on Friday night.
Yeah. Well, it was the beginning of this year. Oh, you know, the market's not been great. So I've been really very, very conscious of a lot of that and trying to really plan for it. You'd be very proud of me. And, but I had said, okay, I'm totally going to cut out all of these things that really I don't need to do them. I mean, I could live like Little House on the Prairie and, you know, not even use electricity if I need to, I suppose. But I cut out like getting my nails done and then they're done now. You could see I couldn't handle it for very long. And then
they're very cute.
Thank you. But I didn't do it for a whole month. And I felt like such a ragmuffin because I don't do it myself at home. And I maybe could learn how, but I don't want to.
It's something you enjoy, right?
Well, it's maintenance. Yeah. It's just maintenance.
But it's fun.
But the hair, you know, it's like you go get your hair done.
Oh, and God, don't even start about that.
I adore my hair girl. I've known her since she was, 18 or something. I love seeing her. She's just the most awesome person. She's probably pretty affordable compared to a lot of the people. But now I have to go like every 5 weeks. And that gets to be a little bit much.
Why do you have to go every 5 weeks?
Shut up, Michelle, blonde hair over there.
Please.
Yeah, don't even go there. She could have gray come in and you can't even see it. It's like I have one gray hair coming and it shows up everywhere.
I have to go every 4 weeks.
Yeah, it's getting to be like 4 weeks.
I mean, my good friend Susan will call and she'll be like, let me guess, you're on your way to get your hair done.
Well, I started I told Misty, my gal, I was like, I love you. You know, I love you, but I can't do this every 5 weeks or whatever. So she basically said, okay, this is what you need to get, blah, blah, blah. And she's, you know, and so Zoe does it every other time.
I love that.
Yeah. And it's a little bit darker, I suppose, but.
So can I ask, do you save the money that you would have spent Is this kind of some of the stuff you're talking
Yes.
about? Like, do you then take that money? Okay, I'm having Zoe do my hair, so I'm not going to spend that $125 or whatever it is, and I'm going to put it in my emergency fund. You don't have to answer that question, but I'm just asking you, Melissa, is that kind of what you're talking about when you're moving money around and trying
my credit
to save?
card just has less on it. Is basically what it is.
It's that discipline piece.
Yeah.
Because it is easy. That's what I kind of start doing in my head is I say, oh, well, I saved X amount, so I can kind of transfer that over. But the piece that will really be impactful is, yes, you have to then take that extra money that you have and put it aside
Intentionally.
and save it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not drinks on me.
Make it a game. I mean, I do that with myself, to make it a game and see how much, because it is really shocking how much money you can save, at least for me, doing things like that. I haven't gotten the hair formula down yet, but
Just ask your girl.
Oh, yeah.
Just ask your girl. Yeah.
I've got crazy hair. So yeah, but finding those little places where, I can but then also, we also want to have fun. We also don't want to be, because it can get a little overwhelming when you're like, oh, I can't spend a dime.
And then you're a buzzkill.
Right. I mean, so.
But you find things to do. Like we just find things to do at home.
Here's an example of, I love to go to happy hour. Well, let me tell you, the happy hours aren't so happy anymore. They are full price. There's no happy hour.
Or it's happy hour prices are the regular prices, and now the
Right.
regular prices are way. We've noticed that a lot on
Stress hour.
restaurants.
Is it stress hour
Stress
now?
hour. Yeah.
And so I was thinking
not
I'm
so happy
saving
hour.
money because I'm going to happy hour. And really, it's like, these happy hours are
Yeah,
becoming.
very true.
Mm-hmm.
Very true.
Yeah.
So it's little things like happy hour, or opting to go to have a drink and come home, or just have a drink with your friends at home. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can kind of
Absolutely.
save on different things.
Yep. Maybe a vacation. It was also, I think, kind of eye-opening when there's a lot of people taking advantage after COVID of going on these extravagant vacations. And I'm like, wow, that sounds really nice, but figuring out ways to do things that you can still get away and they're not as expensive, they're still fun.
You're not flying. Basically, the difference is you're not flying somewhere.
Yeah. True.
A lot of more local stuff.
Right. And so just getting creative, there's a lot of really cool side gigs now that people do to earn a little bit of money. If you have the energy and you want to do that, then, that's a great way to bring in some extra income so that you're not just decreasing your spending, but also, trying to find some ways to earn a little bit more.
That definitely, and it's kind of fun actually. It's kind of fun to do things like that.
It's kind of like eating, calories in versus calories out. That caloric deficit. It's the same with money.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
Well, that's such a good point, because really when we look at all these different things that we want to do to take better care of ourselves.
It costs money.
Well, okay, they do cost money, but also adding your money management, your money hygiene into that picture too.
Yeah.
Not just like about how we sleep and exercise.
Financial health.
Financial health. Yeah, really taking a good hard look at that. And so
I think that the idea
I think I'm
of
dying.
No, but think about it. It's like if having like a clear picture.
Yeah.
I mean, I have kind of a picture that is like the one when I don't have my glasses on. It's a little fuzzy.
Yeah.
So, but having that clear picture, I know would take my stress level down.
It does, because even though you might not like the number that you see up there, to me, that's the honest truth, because those numbers are right there in front of you. And then you can start to plot and figure out ways to get closer and closer. To me, it's always more stressful than not knowing and just wondering and, putting my head in the sand and, oh God, I think it's going to be really bad. And then you go, oh, okay, it's not great, but
I know what I'm dealing with.
But I know what I'm dealing with. Yeah. Knowledge is power.
Truthfully, it really is.
Yeah.
I think it's so cool that you evolved into this out of your situation, being divorced and not having been in the workforce, and then doing with the Edward Jones years ago, and how it's evolved. I think it's just really cool in light of what women do have to deal with when they go through those situations.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's a lot of just kind of keeping your head above water and not really being able to enjoy because there's not a plan. But it's not that they're not smart to have a plan. It's just probably completely overwhelmed.
It is.
Trying to just make ends meet as best as they can. I mean, there's so much of that. And it's for men too. I mean, it's not just women. It's not just divorced women. It's people that are single. And let's face it, you guys, we live in a very, very expensive part of the country.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't even really realize how much more expensive it is here than it is in other places.
it's so much more expensive.
But we also probably make more money. I mean, our wages are higher here than they might be like in Kansas, or something
Right.
like that. So maybe the disparity isn't as high as it might seem because, you're making less, but things cost less.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We do live in an expensive spot, though. And
That's an understatement. It's expensive here.
it is.
All the other reasons why you don't want to move to the Emerald City. Sorry, people.
I had a really good thought just now, and it's gone.
Uh-oh.
It'll come back.
It happens.
When you're 50 something. Oh, that was last week's episode.
Fake it till you make it, girl.
Yeah.
In regard to, I know we've talked about a lot of foundational things for financial stability. What are some of the other things that might go into being prepared that maybe not monetarily, but just that go along with those financial foundations? I don't know, like a will or anything
Sure.
like that is.
Sure. Those are really important because even if you're just saving money, which is fantastic, you have to still go back and create that foundation to me. So getting a will in place and thinking through, finding if you're not great with taxes, if you don't do your own taxes, finding someone to help you with that, because that person coupled with finding a financial advisor, someone who can help you, those people are like key people that can help you and make a difference in what you're doing and how you're saving and strategies. So
And you might come out ahead, even though you're spending. See, I'm sitting here listening because I don't know really what I'm doing with taxes, but I do my own. So, because I always think, gosh, I'm just going to save that money and not.
But then you get
have
to write it
somebody
off the
else,
following year.
and
I'm all about
Yeah.
the write-off.
yeah,
You
I
like
don't know,
the
just
write-offs.
stuff like that. Our wills,
that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, you do have to think about that. And you then can also think about the expertise and the knowledge that you're getting. It's kind of like, looking up your own diagnosis or your symptoms online, and trying to figure out.
That's a
And-
really, really good comparison.
the risk versus the reward piece of things like that.
Well, and the other thing too, really like to what you're talking about, you're so heavily invested and emotionally invested in everything that's going on with you, all your details. Having someone who is an objective party
Oh, yeah.
That's
to walk
true.
you through things
point.
and give you those kind of strategies and help you figure out what you can live with probably is pretty eye-opening
Yeah.
for you and very helpful.
Good point.
Mama's got a lot to do after this show.
Well, it's funny because we've been talking. We've been talking. Melissa and I have been talking about this for a while, and she's just like, she's my friend. She's going to sit down and
Yeah.
help me figure it out. And I want to get a small Roth IRA going. And we talked about maybe a couple for my kids. Now I'm kind of debating whether if I do that or not, but maybe I start it and then they can contribute to it down the road. But they're all, with the exception of the youngest, very savvy, I think, with spending, saving, understanding their money. They're really good at it. If the older two, the younger one, I'm still working on him, but we'll get there. But anyway, yeah. But for ourselves, kind of figuring out what we need to do or what steps, like we finish with this, we publish our episode and it's like, this information is really helpful. I think it's going to get a lot of people really thinking about, gosh, where am I at? What do I need to do? Or what do my husband and I need to do, or wife or whatever, to kind of establish that and get ourselves going. Because I wonder how much of an undercurrent of stress is happening with people when they don't know. Especially when you see, like right now, we have our economy is in a really strange place. We have inflation taking place, and there's just everything is kind of all cockamamie, it's all over the place. So I think it just leaves people feeling very unsteady.
Cockamamie.
It is. It is
Cockamamie.
unsettling.
Maybe
Yes.
that wasn't
Yeah.
the best word.
It was a good word. I haven't heard it in a while. That's all.
Probably like, whippersnapper.
Yeah.
But in terms of just walking away, to me, it's about just making that list of to-dos and just being disciplined and really just taking on one a week or something like that. You don't have to do all of them this week.
I know. See, this is what I'm loving about this is, yep, you always feel like you have to attack it all at once. And that's where it seems overwhelming. And then you're just like, maybe next week, or maybe I'll think about it next month or whatever. But super thankful for this episode today, because I think one of the main things that I've gotten is the little things that can add up to a lot. But then also what we just talked about, getting an expert to be able to assist with some of those things.
Yep.
And if you don't go to even investigate what maybe that cost is or what it even looks like, you don't know what you don't know. And I'm
Right.
speaking to myself right now.
Yeah.
You just don't know what you don't know. And so,
And
anyway.
when you don't know, a lot of the times things can seem very scary or very insurmountable.
Yeah.
Because because you don't know, you don't have the knowledge behind it. So
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's definitely good to talk with somebody who's got that knowledge and can help guide.
Yep. Someone
Guide you.
just to sit alongside you
Yeah.
and help you.
So did you have any other?
No, I just thank you so much to Melissa
Oh my
for
gosh.
coming and sharing her, tidbits of knowledge in this area. I think it's one that's really important, and one that, to your point just now, a lot of people don't necessarily pay close attention to and don't really know how to. So any little bits that were gleaned from today from anybody, I think is super important.
Yeah, I think we all a lot of the time go, oh, we'll deal with that later. Or, oh, we don't have time for that. Or we need to pay for this now, so we'll deal with that later. Obviously speaking from experience, I've done that myself, but I think that's definitely something that is out there quite a bit.
Absolutely.
So would you be okay with could we share some of your information? Because I would love, if people are out there and have questions, I know you would be interested in talking to them probably.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So maybe just share like your email address or maybe your email address or your phone number, whatever you're comfortable with, or we can put it in the notes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you both. I had so much fun. I had no idea how fun this was going to be.
Yeah.
so.
See, it's not so bad.
It's
Can I ask you
wonderful.
one question before we
Sure.
end? If you could give your younger self a piece of financial advice based on what you have learned and what you know now, what would the number one thing be?
Just to be disciplined and just start that as early as you can, even if it doesn't feel like much. It does make a difference.
Okay. All right. Well, there you have it.
Very good advice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I am so appreciative of you being here and chatting with us today.
I had a great time. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have other topics to talk about in the future too, but this is really helpful, and it's one of those ones that people feel very gray. So it's nice to just kind of get it out there, and there's always a way to kind of get past some of the anxiety that people are feeling and create a plan, even if it's a small plan, but creating a plan for future. So
Check us out on all our socials, everybody. And if you have particular questions that you want to have be more private, direct message us or send us an email, a blonde, a brunette, and a mic at gmail.com.
Yes.
And we will be sharing a bit of Melissa's information if any of you are interested in getting assistance or have questions in regard to more of what she does. So
yeah, we'll have it in our notes.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, ladies. That was very fun.
Yeah.
All right. Till next time, everybody.
Have a good one. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.